Due to some technical hiccups, today's video is a little unique. Although I'm not as lively as usual, I'm committed to making the most of the situation and moving ahead. Still, within every problem, there are possibilities. And if you prefer this format to my more animated counterpart, let me know in the comments. And now, on with the video. It's a refrain heard round the internet. From Warhammer 40k to Dungeons & Dragons, Star Wars to Lord of the Rings, accusations from fans that activist ravagers behind their favorite storied universes are disrespecting and breaking the lore those universes are built on. The consistent back and forth over it begs the question, how important is lore? For all the talk about lore, there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about what it even is. Some of us hold lore as being an indispensable part of fictional world building, but others consider it rather unimportant. They think lore is useful up to a point, but that it can just as easily drag down storytelling and worse. They believe that lore creates toxic fandoms who claim ownership over IPs because they've memorized the smallest unimportant details of the worlds they love. As a result, they behave as if lore creates more problems than it solves. This proverbial tug of war between different parts of fractured fan bases has been around a long time, but in all of it, there seems to be some perspective loss. So before we go any further, let's go back and discuss what lore actually is. The website lore.com has a terrific breakdown with this definition. Lore refers to the knowledge, history, and mythology that surrounds fictional universes. It acts as a framework and provides depth and complexity to stories being told. In many cases, lore can be seen as the foundation upon which stories are built. Lore encompasses various elements such as backstories. Characters in fictional universes have their own individual histories that contribute to the overall lore. For instance, the character Voldemort in Harry Potter has a deep, rich backstory that offers layers of intrigue and mystery that are slowly revealed as the series goes on. World building. The creation of a detailed, consistent world including geography, politics, and social structures. The key word here is consistent. It is very important that when you're creating a fictional world, you want people to believe and invest in it. World building, when done right, adds parameters and rules on which stories can be told. This is especially true when you're dealing with magic systems and futuristic technology, to ground these more fantastical elements in a kind of reality. And it prevents lazy writing tropes, where a new use or capability of a previously established element is able to simply solve a problem. The way Rey can suddenly use the Force to regenerate living tissue and heal wounds in Rise of Skywalker. Mythology and legends. Each universe has its own myth and legends that shape the culture and belief systems within it. This is an area where fans around the world spend a lot of time, discussing, debating, and sharing the mythic backgrounds of their favorite fictional worlds, the origins of the Sith in Star Wars, the legends of the first two ages of Middle-earth, and the insanely complex and deep mythology of the Neon Genesis Evangelion franchise. All of it helps to enhance both the worlds themselves and the fans' enjoyment of them. Time periods. Different eras and time periods within a fictional universe can add layers of complexity to its lore. This is especially true of worlds that have been around for a long time, with roots that can be explored. This is true of Star Wars, with the different eras of the High Republic, its fall, and the rise of the evil Galactic Empire. Or World of Warcraft, that has decades of world history and stories that build upon themselves. The article from lore.com sums it up by saying, in essence, lore is an extensive collection of background information that enriches and enhances the story by providing additional context for characters, events, or locations. With this understanding, it's easy to see why so many people put a lot of weight and emphasis on the lore of their favorite franchises. A fleshed out lore gives our favorite fictional worlds depth and realism. It enables us to connect with them on a deeper level. It provides reason, purpose, and meaning to everything that happens in the stories built upon them. So why are there some people so against lore? Well, I don't pretend to know all the reasons. I can tell you the two that come out most commonly in public discourse. First is from ravagers posing as creatives. Writers, producers, actors, and directors who view lore as restrictive. They don't want to be constrained by someone else's rules, which they believe stifles their creativity. These ravagers then believe that they should be able to rewrite or ignore lore that they don't like, to have the freedom to do whatever they want. According to sources within Netflix's The Witcher, producers and writers actively disliked elements of the lore found in the books and sought to change and subvert it. Though some have disputed this, there's no disputing that one of the show's executive producers admitted to making changes from the lore and story of the books, but blamed that on fans, saying that some elements had to be simplified because audiences were too stupid to follow it. Right, because people needed help following the story from a best-selling book series and a video game franchise that they've been fans of for years. The other reason ravagers might change or disregard lore is because they are not interested in telling good stories with compelling characters and themes. They are activists bent on sending a message. And when message is your primary goal, all else falls by the wayside, especially franchise lore, which forms the foundations of character and story. In Disney's animated movie Wreck-It Ralph, a lot of time is spent on world building, on creating an interconnected world made up of the different games in Litwack's arcade. The world has rules and structure, which gives way to the film's greatest taboo, going turbo. When a character abandons their game in an attempt to take over another, this inevitably ends in one or both games being unplugged. In the first movie, going turbo is the greatest display of selfishness, putting one's own desires above the community regardless of the hurt and destruction it causes. This bit of world building and lore, along with its character and story elements, are completely tossed for the sequel, Ralph Breaks the Internet, when Vanellope decides her happiness is dependent on abandoning her game, Sugar Rush, to join an online battle racing game. But in the sequel, this isn't treated as a bad thing. There's no mention of going turbo, and the real problem, the antagonist, is Ralph, who tries to stop her. Nearly the entirety of the first movie's plot, character, and lore are ignored in favor of feminist empowerment. Then there's the second reason for attacks on lore. This one comes from toxic elements within fandoms, people who identify as fans, but enjoy only the most superficial connection to the properties they supposedly love. They are sometimes labeled as tourists for the propensity to hang around and loudly make their voices heard with little or no respect for where they are. Regardless of how you want to identify them, these subset of fans generally hold to only a couple limited points of interest in an IP. For instance, those who like the aesthetics of Star Wars, lightsaber fights, starships, droids. As long as a few of these favorite elements are present, this group is happy, as they take little notice of the deeper elements of story or character. We also see this in other places, like the new Doctor Who, where much of the show now revolves around the identity of the actor playing the Doctor and the show's social political messaging. Or an older example from the CW show The 100, where a side romance between the lead character Clark Griffin and a rival leader Lexa consumed a portion of the show's fanbase until it was the only thing that they were watching the show for. And consequently, when Lexa was killed off, it created a massive controversy that the showrunners were not prepared for. In each of these cases, self-proclaimed fans became obsessed with elements that were either peripheral or adversarial to character, story, and world building. But for those of us who love well-told stories with deep, relatable characters set in believable worlds, then lore is indispensable. And it explains why so many of us become so agitated when lore is broken, ignored, or rewritten, not for the purpose of making anything better, but to serve the self-interest of activists, ravagers, and tourists, who don't have the same connection to the worlds they've co-opted, and don't share the same level of investment. So yes, I believe lore is important. Not only does it make good writing better, but the time and effort it takes to build is worthy of respect. Respect that simply isn't shown by those seeking to tear it down to pursue vapid egotism. But this is all just one rebel's opinion. If you have any thoughts on lore and world building, let me know in the comments. If you appreciate this commentary, please leave a like, and subscribe to the channel so you'll always get the latest on Rebel Normal.